Very good morning to one and all, and a warm welcome to the next session on Java. So far, till now, we have covered what is a try keyword and what is the catch block, and then what is a throw keyword. So in today's session, we are going to see about what is the use of throws keyword and what is the use of finally keyword and how we can use both of them in exception handling. Okay, so I am just revising what we have discussed so far in exception handling. For example, these are the few lines of code in our program. So among these lines, if there is an exception at, for example, we are expecting an exception at these two lines. So what we have to do in the sense, we have to keep these two lines in a block. Okay, we have to keep these two lines in a block, and we have to provide the try keyword for these couple of lines. So if we provide the try keyword, the exception will be identified here. So whenever the exception was identified, we need to handle that exception. So in order to handle that exception, we have to use the catch block. So whenever an exception has been raised, that exception will be identified by this try block, and that exception will be handled by this catch block. Okay, and at the same time, inside this catch block, if we use the throw keyword again, so if we use the throw keyword again, so the same exception will be thrown again. So at the bottom, we have to provide one more handling code in the sense we have to provide one more catch block in order to handle the exception which was rethrown. Okay, so this is what we have discussed so far in exception handling. So we already saw that there are 5 keywords in exception handling: try, catch, throw, throws, finally. So far we have covered try keyword, catch keyword, and throw keyword. Now we are going to look at the throws keyword. Okay, throws keyword. What this throws keyword will do is that, for example, we have a method. Okay, we have a method, and we want to tell the user that the particular method is going to throw something, or that a particular method is going to throw an exception. Then we can use this throws keyword. So let us see this one with the use of an example so that you can understand it somewhat better. See here, for example, let us take a Java program. So here what I am going to do here is leave this main method aside. We will discuss it with later. So I am defining a class here. For example, my class name is A. Okay, and inside A, I have a method M, that is void M. Okay, void M, and this void M, inside void M, I have writing that this void M is going to throw. Okay, this void M is going to throw IO exception. So that is input output exception. Okay, so input output exception. See here, for example, if anyone calls this method, okay, if anyone calls this method, then it is going to throw an input output exception. So in order to tell the user that this method is going to throw something, so the user may or may not look into the body of the method. So just by seeing the name of the method, the user will come to a conclusion that this method is going to throw something. So in order to say that a particular method is going to throw an exception, we are going to use the throws keyword. So we are going to use the throws keyword in order to tell that this method M is going to throw IO exception. So along with this, we can mention any number of exceptions. Okay. Along with this, we can mention any number of exceptions along with the throws keyword. So when we mention some exceptions along with the method definition here, it is not mandate that this method is throwing that this method should throw an exception. So we are just giving an intimation that we are expecting that this method is going to throw IO exception and arithmetic exception. So we can write any code inside this method. It's not a problem. We can write any code inside this method, but we are telling the user that this method is going to throw some exception. So this throws keyword will do nothing in the program. It is just used to intimate the user that this particular method is going to throw some exceptions. Okay, now I'm going to define one more method here. Let us assume that is void something called as void m1. Let us take void m1 void m1. See here and I am expecting void m1. Okay, void m1 throws IO exception. Okay, IO exception. So inside this body, I am going to call the method m. Okay, inside the body, I am going to call method m. Right? So see here, and inside this one, I have a method called as void p. Okay, void p, and inside the body of this method, I am going to maintain the try keyword, and inside this one, I am going to call the method n. So why I have used the try keyword here? So whenever I call the method n, okay, whenever I call the method n, I am expecting, sorry, not method n, it is method m1, sorry. Whenever I am calling the method m1, okay, method m1, it is mentioned that, okay, it is mentioned that m1 may throw IO exception. So it is mentioned m1 is going to throw IO exception. That's why I have maintained try block for this m1. So when m1 throws an IO exception, that will be identified by this try block. Okay, if m1 do not throw IO exception, nothing will happen, right? So inside the catch block, okay, inside the catch block, we have to maintain the type of exception. For example, I can maintain exception space E, or I can maintain runtime exception space E. Okay, runtime exception space E, or I can maintain IO exception space E. Okay, so here inside the catch block, in case of getting an exception, I'm going to print system.out.println. I'm going to print exception occurred. Exception occurred, right? So now I'm going to deal with the main method. Okay, I'm going to deal with the main method. For example, the main method name is m. Okay, main method name is m, and inside this one, okay, inside this main method, what I'm going to do here is that class A. So I'm going to create an object for the upper class A space obj equal to new A. Okay, new A, and inside this one, I'm going to call. Okay, I'm going to call this method P. Okay, this method P, and I'm going to print one more statement called the system.out.println. System.out.println something called as a normal execution. Normal execution. See here. Okay, don't get confused with this throws keyword. It is very simple. So let us save the code first. Okay, let us save the code and then let us run the code first, and then I will explain it again. Just a second, we have missed something here. We have missed a semicolon here. Yeah. Okay. And at line number 32, end of the file has been reached. Just a second. Is not accepting IO exceptions. Let us change this one. Let us do arithmetic exception here. Okay. So see here, we have got the output exception occurred and normal execution. See here, I will explain the entire program. So this program will start executing from main method. Okay, main method. So inside the main method, the first thing is that we have created an object for class A. So this is class A. So we have created an object for class A. And after creating an object for class A, we have called the method P. So P will start executing. So when P is starting executing, inside P, we have called the method M1. Okay, we have called the method M1. So if M1 has been executed, we are telling the user or programmer that there is a chance of getting an exception called as arithmetic exception. So that's why when calling M1, we have maintained try block to identify and catch block to handle. So if M1 is executed, M1 internally calls M method. So if M method is executed, we are generating an exception called as arithmetic exception of our own. See here, we are an arithmetic exception is not occurring automatically. We are generating an exception. We are generating an arithmetic exception by using throw new. So whenever we use the new keyword, this type of exception will be generated and that exception will be thrown. Okay, so don't get confused. I'm going to minimize this program with a few lines. Delete this one. Okay, delete this one. And now observe the things now. There are only two methods. The first method is M and the second method is P. So for M method, I'm using throws keyword. As we discussed earlier, throws is the keyword which is used to intimate the programmer or the user that this particular method is having a chance of throwing certain exceptions. So when I use throws keyword, space arithmetic exception, now this M method is having a chance of throwing arithmetic exception. So whenever we call this M method, we can maintain try and catch blocks because the program is intimating the user that it is having a chance of throwing an exception. So I called the M method here. So when I am calling M method here, so that M method calling should be placed in a try block because whenever exception is occurred, it is to be identified. And when we maintain the try block, we need to handle that exception. So we have maintained the catch block. Okay, now it is clear, right? So if anyone is having the doubts, you can raise your hand. If anyone is having the doubts, you can raise your hand. Not only in this one, in exception handling or in multi-threading or anything. Okay, if there are no doubts, we can continue to the next one. See here, the last keyword in exception handling is that finally keyword. Okay, finally keyword. So see here, for example, here instead of throwing a new exception, if I have printed something called as a system.out.println, okay, system.out.println, good morning. Okay, good morning. See here, now if I run this code, okay, if I run this code, I'm going to get good morning and a normal flow or normal execution as an output. Okay, see here. So if there is an exception here, okay, for example, instead of writing good morning here, if I write throw new, okay, throw new arithmetic exception, okay, if I write like this, and if I don't maintain this one, okay, if I don't maintain this one, now if I compile and execute, I am going to get an output of error occurred and normal flow, or exception occurred or normal flow. Why I am getting exception occurred? So when M method is executed, then there we are going to throw an exception called as arithmetic exception. So exception has been raised. So if an exception has been raised, that is identified by this try block, and this try block identification is going to execute the catch block. So if this catch block has been executed, it is going to print exception occurred on the output screen. That's why we got the first line of output as exception occurred. And then it is going to print normal execution. Okay, for example, instead of this one, if I am having this one, system.out.println good morning, and now if I execute this one, okay, if I execute this one, I am going to get good morning and normal execution. Now this catch block has not been executed. Why this catch block has not been executed? When we call the M method, so this M method, even though we maintain that this M method is going to throw arithmetic exception, but the body of the method is not throwing an exception. In such case, catch block will not be executed. Okay, when the catch block will get executed, catch block will get executed when there is an exception. When there is an exception only, then the Java compiler is going to execute the catch block. So if there is no exception, that the catch block will never be executed. So if there is an exception, it is going to execute the catch block. If there is no exception, catch block will not be executed. Now if you observe, if there is an exception, then it is going to execute the catch block. If there is no exception, it is not going to execute the catch block. But I have a block called as finally. For example, I have a few statements. Okay, I have a few statements. I want those statements to execute compulsory. Okay, I want those statements to be executed compulsory. So for such type of statements, okay, executed in any case. Okay, for such type of statements, if I maintain the finally keyword for that block, okay, if I maintain the finally keyword for that block, if an exception has been raised, okay, then try block is executed, catch block is executed, finally is executed. If there is no exception, try block is executed, and then finally block is executed. So when we keep some statements inside a block and we name the block with finally keyword, then that finally block will be executed for sure, irrespective of the errors or irrespective of the exceptions that was raised in the program. That finally block will get executed. So in a program, we don't know whether an exception will be raised or not. Okay, in such cases, we maintain exception handling or we don't maintain exception handling. But if we maintain the finally block, that finally block statement should be executed compulsory or will be executed compulsory. Okay, so irrespective of the exception or irrespective of the type of exception, this statement will be executed for sure. Okay, so that is the use of finally block. You can see here, executed in any case. So after printing good morning, okay, after printing good morning, so there is no exception. That's why this catch block was not executed. Okay, this catch block was not executed, but the finally block is executed. See here, when we call the M method, okay, when we call the M method, So this M method is intimated that it is going to throw an arithmetic exception, but the body of this M method is not throwing any arithmetic exception. It is just printing a good morning statement on the output screen. So just printing good morning statement on the output screen will never create an arithmetic exception. So that's why this catch block was not executed. Even though if the catch block was not executed, this finally block got executed. Okay, and at the same time, let us see this one. So it is the output in first case, and now I am going to raise an exception here. Just a second. I am going to raise an exception here. My exception is that throw new, throw new arithmetic exception. Okay, I am writing some text here. So if I save, compile, and if I run the code, see here, let us compare both the cases. Okay, let us compare both the cases. In both the cases, if you observe, it is the case when exception was raised. When exception was raised, the catch block has been executed, finally block has been executed. When there is no exception, just good morning has been printed on the output screen and finally block has been executed. In both the cases, if you observe, if there is an exception or if there is no exception, finally block is executed for sure. That's why we are getting executed in any case as an output in both the cases. So now we have completed this exception handling. Okay, and at the same time we have seen how to throw an user-defined exception also. Not user-defined exception, how to throw an exception by our own, even though there is no exception. For example, here there is no arithmetic exception. When arithmetic exception will occur, for example, if we write a statement such as C equal to A by B, and if the value of B is 0, then there is a chance of getting an arithmetic exception. Okay, so but here we have used two keywords, that is throw and new. By using throw and new keywords, we are generating an arithmetic exception, even though there is no arithmetic exception. So this is the way we can generate an exception which was not there, by using throw and new keywords. Okay, so far we have covered 5 keywords. Try, let us come to the conclusion. Try, catch, okay, and throw. Try, catch, throw, and then throws. Try, catch, throw, throws, and the last one is finally. So this try block is used to identify. This catch block is used to handle. This throw keyword is used to throw. Okay, this throw keyword is used to throw. This throws keyword is used to mention. Okay, this throws keyword is used to mention that there is a chance of getting an exception. And this finally keyword, so the statement which we need to execute compulsory can be kept in this finally keyword. So when we kept something in the finally keyword, that something will be executed for sure. Okay, so this is all about the exception handling keywords in Java. So, and if anybody is having doubts in exception handling, you can raise your hands. You can raise your hands. Okay, if there are no doubts, let us see how we can create our own exceptions. Right, our own exceptions in the sense, let us delete all this code and let us start writing the code. For example, I have defined a class name is A, and this class is inheriting. For example, if I have written extends, okay, extends exception. Okay, if this class is extending an exception, now what I am going to do here is that, see what I am going to do. I am going to write something called as invalid. Okay, invalid age exception, for example, invalid age exception, and I have to use the string s here, string and any object name, for example, string s. Okay, so inside this one, we need to call the super class method, super of s. So see here, we are creating an exception. Okay, here we are creating an exception, and my exception name is that invalid age exception. Invalid age exception. At the same time, we can also write our own name here. Okay, so now we are creating an exception called as CSC, or we can write our name also. We can create an exception with our name. Okay, so if we want to create an exception with our name, we can create it in this way. So we have to define a class, and the class should extend the exception class. And inside the class, we need to define the name of the exception we want to throw, and that exception should have a parameter. Okay, and that exception should have a parameter of a string s, where the body of that exception should contain the super keyword along with the string s. Now, when we are creating the CSC exception, we will pass a text. So that text will be passed to the super class, that is the exception class. Okay, so this is the way we can create our own exception. Now, let us see. Okay, let us see how we can raise that exception and how we can handle that exception. Okay, let us define a class. For example, static B for a class B. So inside the class B, okay, inside class B, I am going to write a static method, static void, something called as a validate. Okay, static void validate. Here I am going to write a method, a parameter called as int age, and I am expecting, okay, I am expecting this int age will throw an exception called as a CSC. Okay, an exception called as CSC. So I am writing here if, okay, if age is less than 18, if age is less than 18, then what I am going to do here is that throw, okay, throw new CSC. Okay, throw new CSC, and the text is that we can write any text here. Less age, okay, less age, right? And then else, see here, else system.out.println, system.out.println, welcome to work. Welcome to work. So see here, this is a program where it will throw an error when voter age is less than 18, and it will allow the voter to cast his vote when his or her age is greater than 18. Okay, see here, I am writing the main method of Java, public static void main. Okay, public static void main string args. Okay, public static void main string args. See here, inside this body, I am going to call the method validate. Okay, validate by passing something called as 13. Okay, passing 13. So see here, when we call the validate method, we have mentioned that it is going to throw a CSC exception. That's fine. That's fine. Please keep this method calling. Okay, please keep this method calling inside the try block. Okay, inside the try block. validate of 13 here, right? Validate of 13 here. And inside the catch block, okay, inside the catch block, we can write CSC space E, okay, CSC space E, system dot out dot print ln, okay, system dot out dot print ln. I'm going to print the exception. Okay, I'm going to print the exception. Now, okay, now save the code first. Okay, save the code first. Instead of writing D here, let us see it as here because that already here is okay, saving the code and now compiling the code. If this here we are creating an exception called as CSC, okay, and now inside the main method we have called the method called as validate of 13. So we have kept this method calling inside try block because this validate method here they had intimated that it is going to throw an exception called as CSC. Okay, so that's why we have maintained try and catch blocks for this method calling. So whenever we call the validate method with the 13 value, so this method will start executing. So validate of 13 will start executing. So inside this one we had written two things. If the age is less than 13, okay, if the age is less than 13, now the 13 will be assigned to this age. So now inside this age, the value is 13. So if it is less than 13, we are going to do an exception. So if this exception has been occurred, then this catch block is going to be executed. For example, if we pass something called as 90, and here the age is not less than 80, so it will not throw an exception. It will not throw an exception, and else block will get executed. So this else block is going to print welcome to vote on the output. Okay, so now I think you understood. So if you have any doubts still, you can raise your hands, and with this, exception handling is completed and multi-threading is completed, especially for the EEE students. For the EEE students, the entire syllabus has been completed in this class. And I think we left with only one topic, that is layouts in AWP. That is layouts in AWP. So I will go for one more class. For the layouts in AWP. So apart from that, the EEE student syllabus is completed. Coming to the second year CSC, we have left with the Java database connectivity, that is JDBC. Okay, JDBC, call it as the JDBC ODBC. That is Java database connectivity and Oracle database connectivity. So we have left with only that topic. So in the topic, we are going to cover what is Java database and how we can connect with the Java database, and what is Oracle database and how we can get connected, and how we can do programs with JDBC and ODBC. So that is the topic we left in the syllabus. Okay, for the EEE students and for the CSC students, in AWT we have left with one, that is layout classes. So with the completion of layout classes, EEE student syllabus is completed. And for CSC, we have left with one more topic, that is JDBC. So we are going to complete the syllabus for EEE in one more class, and for CSC, we are going to complete the syllabus in 5 or 6 classes. Okay, so we are going to take the next class maybe on Friday or Saturday. So up to Friday or Saturday, there is no Java class for both of you. So I request you all, please refer with this. I am going to close today's session, and hope you understand today's session. And thank you very much for being here. We will meet you in the next class on